Hi there folks, welcome to RRTV's live coverage of the Racing Leagues.com Oceanic GT series, coming to you live from Laguna Seca for round 11, almost there in this series. But your commentary team tonight is myself, Bernie Weemers, and I'm joined in the box by Edward Foster. Welcome, Edward.
Thanks, Bernie. Looking forward to seeing a little bit of GT3 racing tonight. Great circuit at Laguna Seca as well. Really conducive to some great side-by-side close racing. So we hope we get to see a bit of that tonight.
Yeah, I think we will. We've got 10 cars lining up for tonight, folks, and having a look at the race details, what you can expect here. So they're just finishing their 20-minute qualifying here, and then from there we're going to go into a 60-minute time certain race. Fuel capacity 30%, and there will be one random safety car. As far as the start goes, it's a rolling start with a single file restart. Now, 30% capacity, folks, you can expect them to pit twice, and that always adds a bit of spice to the night, as well as a random safety car. Now, as I say every week, what we do is we go and find someone off the street, we lock them up in a little room, give them a big red button, and when they get an electric shock, they press that button and we get the random safety car. It's getting worse every week.
No, absolutely. I mean, the random safety car really does help to, I suppose, spice it up a little bit, you know, especially having it in conjunction with that 30% fuel capacity as well really makes it a strategic thing. Do you try to bank on that virtual safety car? Do you try to time and guess and think where it's going to be around it? Or do you just run what you believe to be the quickest strategy under green flag conditions and then just try to adapt as that comes out? So these cars designed for long races, designed for those longer period races, they may not all be equal speed over one lap, but they certainly do even out over those longer stints. And when you've got fuel loads and also that random safety car in there as well, it can create a situation where you really get some unpredictability about the racing and who's called it right and who's called it wrong. So it's going to be a very interesting race and hopefully a very exciting one as well.
Yeah, exactly right. And as you said, it's that gamble, isn't it? When is it going to come out? We've seen many times in the AOSC where people run long and they get caught out by a random safety car, but you just don't know when it's going to come out, and only that person locked in the room does, really. But having a look at the point score as it stands coming into this, Jamie McKnight, he's leading on 1,326 points. He's in a Mercedes. Then in the BMW is Blair Walton, and his points is 1,083. Daniel Stevens in another Mercedes is in third on 1,014. Troy Allen, yet another Mercedes, in fourth on 936 points, and then rounding out your top five is Gavin Cox in the Ferrari. So that's our top five as they stand. As you can see, the Mercedes is the favourite weapon of choice in this series.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very good reason for that as well. When the Mercedes came out, everybody sort of described it as the BMW without the vices. You know, the front engine layout is very forgiving sort of layout. It doesn't snap away from you the way that a mid-engine one does, despite the fact that a mid-engine layout is better on paper in terms of weight distribution and so on. In terms of drivability and forgiveness and just the way that you're able to handle it and throw it around, a front engine layout is something that a driver is much better able to cope with over a long race, you know, the long type of races these GT3s do, you know, Le Mans and things like that. So it's no surprise that it's really been so popular. But of course, in GT3 racing, they have the balance of performance as well, where various things are limited and changed on each particular model of car to produce really good racing amongst the entire field, no matter what car you choose to drive. So that's been reflected in iRacing's latest builds as well. So I would expect, you know, for following series in official GT3 and so on, that the mix of models would be a lot more diverse than perhaps it is at the moment.
Yeah, and that's what we see in the SRA, which will be on later on tonight, folks, from about 10 p.m. GMT plus 10. But having a look at the moment, your top 10, or your whole field at the moment, with 2 minutes 50 to go, Jamie McKnight, he's sitting on provisional pole with a 1:19.496. Kai Sloggett just did a hot lap. You saw it on the screen. He nearly got there. He's 0.2 of a second behind him on a 1:19.695. Gavin Cox in the Ferrari, 1:20.346 in third. We see Sam Deventia out there again tonight. We saw him earlier today in the ANSCAR Cup at Bristol. He's back out there with a 1:20.703, sitting in fourth, and Carl Sharkey rounds out our top five with a 1:20.765.
Yeah, I mean, Jamie was sitting up there with quite a gap to the second place car, but of course Kai Sloggett's just popped in one there, only a couple of tenths behind him. Then you've got a bit more of a gap, about 0.5, 0.6 of a second back to Cox, and they're sort of spread. But the midfield battle looks very interesting on one lap pace at the very least. We've got three cars there, all in the 1:20.7s. That's Deventia, Sharkey, and Walton, all sitting there in the 1:20.7s. So that could be a battle really worth watching, that little midfield scrap there, and it'll be interesting to see whether that is just one lap pace or is that something that they can repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat for an hour or so, and perhaps move up past the guys who you don't know about those front two. Perhaps it's hot lap pace, perhaps it's something they can sustain.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? And Jamie's very dominant in this series. And as you can see, he's provisional pole again. I think he won last week, and that's how you win a series. And sees Sam Deventia there, fourth fastest. He did not improve on his time. Carl Sharkey, we'll see if he's out. He is running his lap now. We've got 57 seconds to go. He's sitting in fifth. We'll see if he can get this Mercedes on the second row of the grid, and it should be pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, if he's going to do it, he's got to do it now. This is the dying seconds of qualifying. So, with a field that's relatively small, the qualifying probably isn't as vital as perhaps, if you're looking at a possibility of being stuck back in 30th position and having to work your way through from there. But he's certainly going to want to put in the absolute best lap that he can possibly put in. And he's just actually rounding the last corner now, so it's going to be interesting to see what lap he can actually put up. Comes down the straight, through the gears and across the line. Doesn't look like he actually managed to improve there. So, oh no, he did. Sorry, no, he actually did. And he's jumped Sam Deventia there, so he is booked his spot in the second row unless somebody can depose him.
Yeah, 1/10 of a second was that gap. So looking now, we've got Ian Hannon, another guy to keep an eye on tonight, in 8th so far in qualifying. He's on a hot lap. The time certain qualifying or checkered flag has come out, so he's got a couple of minutes to finish before the end of qualifying, and then we'll be going racing here at Laguna Seca. Apologies for the camera, folks. As you can see, there's a lot of runoff, and that makes it very difficult for the cameras to get up close.
Yeah, but it also allows you to see a great deal more. So I'll just watch Ian Hannon at the moment to see if he's able to improve on his lap time. Love the paint scheme on this as well. The Rizzler sponsorship. It looks a lot as he just sort of pulls off there. He may have abandoned that lap side. He wasn't going to improve, but looking very reminiscent of the old Ozellas that you used to see in the Formula One in the 80s with that Rizzler sponsorship and the blue colours. So big fan of that particular car.
Yeah, definitely, and it looks like a big shout out to Mr. George Gibbs. I'm glad he had a nice nap. He joined us for the ANSCAR Cup and giving us a hello from the US of A. Back up again, and I tell you what, George, I'll give you kudos, mate, for hanging in there.
Oh, he's hardcore, isn't he? He's absolutely hardcore. Every time we've got a RRTV broadcast, there he is, watching the broadcast and so on. So he's definitely a racing diehard, as George.
Yeah, he's going to come down under next year, I think George told me. So I'm hoping to get up to Sydney to say good day to him. So that would be really good.
And that's one of the great things about sim racing, isn't it? It allows you to meet and to speak with people from all over the world who share the same sort of interests and passions that you do, and you make friends that you never would have made otherwise. So despite the competition and despite the the motorsport side of it and everything else, it's very much a social thing. And it's great to see people from overseas, taking an interest in the championships that we've got here, much in the same way as we watch the championships that they run over in the States and Europe and so on.
Yeah, exactly right. It's like I liken it to club level racing, and where you get to know the guys, you get to know the personalities on track. You may not get on too well, but at the end of the day, you generally go and have a beer and swap stories and get to know people. But the difference is this club goes all over the world, and you meet people, as you said, all through Europe, everywhere.
And it's what it's all about. It's absolutely what it's all about. It's one of the things that people sort of bemoan the lack of in professional level, world level motorsport nowadays, is that, it's lost that social sort of aspect to it, where everybody just enjoyed themselves and really enjoyed it. But that spirit is still alive at club level, as you mentioned, and it is definitely still alive in sim racing. We obviously ran the ANSCAR race earlier on today, and these guys run together all the time as well, and you genuinely become friends with the people that you race with. So it's absolutely a very much a social event as well as a competition. When the green lights go, everybody's enemies, but afterwards they're generally all mates again.
Thinking we're going to have a standing start here because I can't see the safety car out. So let's quickly go through this grid, folks. Jamie McKnight, he will start from pole. He's got Kai Sloggett on the front row with him. Second row, Gavin Cox in the Ferrari and Daniel Stevens in fourth. Out of the third row, Carl Sharkey, and then we've got Sam DeVentia starting out of sixth. Out of seventh is Blair Walton in the only lonely BMW. Ian Hannon in the Mercedes out of eighth. He's from the UK. Great to see him here. Darren Goosey starts out of ninth. 10th, hey, look at that, Edward Foster. Well done, mate. And Mitchell Bales will start out of 11th.
Yeah, just jumped in as a competitor rather than a spectator, so you will see me just up there on the timing boards, but definitely not taking part tonight. Yeah,
here we go, folks. It is expecting a rolling start. That is not what we got. We got a standing start, but here they come into turn one. Jamie McKnight, at the moment, he's leading them into turn one. And then the number 9 is coming second. That is Ian Hannon. And the Ferrari, good start from the Ferrari, sitting there in third position. That's Gavin Cox. Daniel Stevens, keep an eye on him. The event organiser, he's sitting in fourth. Carl Sharkey just behind him in fifth. And then Sam DeVentia, sixth position.
Tell you what, some of these guys, Dan Stevens, Sam DeVentia, ran in the Food City 500 ANSCAR earlier on today, and now they're backing up and running one-hour GTs as well. I mean, yeah, I really admire people who are able to jump from two diverse sets of cars like that into, from a stock car into these and be competitive. It's certainly not something I can do, but these guys are hardcore. I can't even imagine how tired they must be after today.
Oh, yeah, they'd be pretty tired. And I know Riley DeVentia, he pretty much tells us exactly what's going on with Sam. And Sam retired from that race, and he watched a little bit of it and then basically said, I'm having a nap and now I'm prepping for the next race, and off he went. So he loves his sim racing, and it's good to see him out here in a GT3. But yeah, it's the other person that does this a lot is Thomas Hinds. You see him in a GT3, he'll be in an Xfinity, he was Cup car, he was V8 supercar, and God knows what else he jumps into.
Yeah, he's fast in anything he gets in, isn't he? And there's a few guys like that are just fast in anything they get in. One of whom is Kai Sloggett, actually running very well there in second place at the moment. He's a force to be reckoned with on oval or road, and he's definitely hustling that AMG GT3 around here, and just keeping Jamie McKnight in view at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see what he's got planned for later in the race. How he's definitely not going to be planning to finish second, just as they both run off there, actually. But he's not going to be planning to finish second. He's going to be plotting ways in order to overhaul Jamie McKnight in front of him. So it'd be interesting to see what he does and how he plays it.
Yeah, well, he's shadowing Jamie at the moment, and these two are pretty close on times, a couple of tenths different. I just noticed there Kai's got a bit of damage onto the front of his car, which he didn't hit anything, but we'll see if the little iRacing gnomes come out and fix that.
Yeah, it's displaying the same on mine actually, showing he's got a bit of damage out. I'm not sure what could possibly cause that, so it could just be a little bit of one of those errors on iRacing's end that does happen from time to time. But these two AMGs are actually gapping the Ferrari in third place of Gavin Cox at the moment, the lone Ferrari in this field actually. So these two running very well up front. It'll be interesting to see if Gavin's able to play himself in as the race goes on, if it's a little bit strategic at the moment for him, and later on he may pop up amongst this battle.
Yeah, we'll see how he goes in that Ferrari. He's looking pretty strong at the moment, which is great to see. The other make out here, we've got a BMW, that's Blair Walton in the Race Star entry. He's currently sitting in 6th position, and then the only lonely Audi is in 9th. That's Darren Goosey driving that car, the John Deere sponsored entry. So it's good to see the Audi out there, but I was expecting it to be a little bit more competitive, but I think it's struggling with these big hills, trying to keep up with these big V8s.
Yeah, I mean, the way that the Audi handles, I mean, it's got a V10 in there, but it's you know, it's very, very twitchy and very I mean, if you're right on top of your game and you are really precise, you can really hustle a good time out of that car, but at the same time, you don't want to touch a curb, you don't want to lock a wheel or anything like that, or you do find it'll spin a lot easier than some of these more front engine cars. I'm interested in watching Blair Walton's progress as the night goes on. He's obviously the lone BMW. The Z4 has actually been out of real life GT3 for quite a while now. The BMW have been fielding the M6. I think everyone on iRacing is waiting to see when they're going to bring the BMW M6 into the sim as well. But at the moment he's running that Z4. I am a little bit BMW biased, being a bit of a BMW fan and a tragic myself, but I'll be interested to see how he manages to hustle that old Z4 around.
Yeah, definitely, and it's interesting. Later tonight, he may turn up for the SRA. He does not campaign a BMW in that. I think he campaigns an Audi in that one.
Okay, well that's interesting. I know that a lot of guys, you know, they tend to get onto one car and they like to stick with it, because when these cars, they're all different. You know, they're racing in the same category, but it's not like a spec series like IndyCar or NASCAR has become, or how V8s or even how Formula One has become in a way. You know, they're all quite different in the way that they handle. They have different strengths and weaknesses. Yes, they have a balance of performance that's mandated by the governing body, which is then reflected in iRacing, but they all are very different. So I'm surprised to see him actually switching from one car model to another, to another, because I would think personally that you'd really want to get very proficient at one model rather than run two different ones. But maybe he's preparing for a full-time switch over to the Audi. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know when I campaigned the GT3, I basically picked a car and I stuck with it, because you've got to learn the idiosyncrasies of these cars. Generally, the GT3s are fairly stiffly sprung. We have seen last week the guys were having all sorts of trouble with losing the rear end, and that was across all makes. And the reason I mention that is if you jump around, you don't get to really get to know that car and really get to know how to make the most of it. As we can see now, Sam Deventi has got an awesome run up the hill, side by side with Carl Sharkey now. And
oh, jeez, yeah. Sorry to talk over the top of you there, Bernie. I was just almost a sharp intake of breath there, hoping, you know, how crazy do you have to be to go diving into the corkscrew? I thought he was going to do it for a moment.
Yeah, I thought so too. Brave man there. And I'll tell you what, would have caught Carl's attention. Carl, of course, he's from the UKNI club, and he's one of the Europeans that come and join us. There's the other person out there, and who is that? I said it early. That's Ian Hannon in that.
Ian Hannon.
Yeah, from the UK as well. So it's great to see both of those guys coming out to have a run.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to see guys from all over the world coming and having a go in the series that we run here in Australia. I'm just keeping an eye on that battle between Deventia and Sharkey. I'm sure that Sharkey's very relieved that Deventia decided that discretion was a better part of valour, and didn't just send one up the inside there at the corkscrew. But then again, if you're Sam Deventia, what do you do at the moment? If the best corner, the corner on the track where you have the most advantage, is the corner right before the corkscrew, then you may have no choice. he may find, as he actually goes for another run again, he's very quick out of that corner just before the corkscrew there. And it could well be that he has no option but to try. Oh, Sharky's done it for him. Sharky's done it for him. He's actually run wide there. And yeah, I think Deventia will be quite happy that he doesn't have to any longer think about having a lunge there at the corkscrew. And he takes over that 4th position. Sharky dropping down a couple of spots there back to, I believe, 6th place.
Yeah, Blair Walton and the BMW got through as well, but you could see Sam there and Carl as they went up the hill. Carl knew he's strong. He actually positioned the Mercedes in the middle of the track to let him know that, you know, you're not going to try it again, but he outbraked himself, which shows the pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. And just while we were talking there, Kai Sloggett's actually gone to the pits. I'm not sure if we did talk earlier on about what strategic play he was going to make. And this could be it. After 10 minutes of an hour race, he's dropped into the pits. So I don't know if there was something amiss with that or if this is a strategic push to try and undercut Jamie McKnight. He may have felt that he was getting held up. Now he's pitted. He's got fresh tyres on it. He can push, and he's got that clean air there, so there's no disturbed aero or anything like that. So he's really able to get after it, get onto it, and try and put in some really hot laps now to try and actually leapfrog Jamie McKnight. So even though you may not see it on the track at the moment, there's a fair chance that he's actually in the process of passing McKnight as we speak.
Well, that's exactly right, and he did a very short stop, 7.8 seconds. So he's just thrown some fuel into that and continued on. And we expect him to stop, 3 times tonight because they're only carrying 30% fuel. They do try to get it through to a one-stopper. They have managed it, but a few of them have coughed and spluttered into the last corner. So they'll probably be wanting to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I mean, he could be running what they call a backward strategy, where you sort of calculate where you want to be at the end of the race and then plan your pit stops backwards from that. And it could well be that he's just had a look at it and gone, okay, I can run this long, and I'm going to pit early to get myself out of the traffic and have a run in some clean air. I think the closest car to him is Ian Shannon. It's about Hannon, sorry. That's around about 4 seconds up the road. So he's got some good clean air to play with there. Exactly
right. And if we look at we'll get a time on him as he comes around to start his first hot lap. Well, his first lap after pits. But Jamie McKnight at the moment, he's sitting in the 120s, 127.74. The Ferrari's 1/10 slower with the 128.86. Sam Deventia, 129.97. Blair Walton, well, he's in the 121s, 121.465. And Carl Sharkey, he's in the 122s with the 122.265. So you can see why Sam was pressuring Carl so much. He's just got a bit more speed to play with. Yeah, so he's managed to pull a little bit of a gap there. He'll be very happy. Have to make that mad dive into corkscrew, and he's been able to run along there. But I'm just kind of watching Jamie McKnight at the moment, and I'm sort of wondering what he's thinking as things play out. He can't see any of the other cars. He can't see anyone else. He's out there on his own. I doubt very much he'll be able to see Gavin Cox in his rearview mirror. He's 7 seconds clear. But at the same time, he knows that there are guys playing strategy all behind him, and he can't see any of it. He's got no idea what's going on behind him. So, sure, he's got a pace advantage. He knows he's got a pace advantage. He qualified in pole position. He was leading the race. But he's also got to keep in mind that these guys are playing various strategy cards behind him, and he doesn't know what they are. So, if I was him, I would be looking at what is going to give me the best, shortest possible race time. I'd be forgetting about the random safety car. I'd be forgetting about any of that. Just trying to plan the shortest theoretical race time and going with that. And hopefully he's just put a little bit of smidgen extra fuel in there just in case he has to adapt his strategy to cope with that that random safety car that's going to come out. Yeah, exactly right. You can really only run your strategy and control what you can control. Random safety car, it's a roll of the dice pretty much. So I don't think you'd be focused too much on that. While you're talking, Daniel Stevens came in. He's done his first stop, 10.1 seconds. So I can definitely guarantee you Kai Sloggett has short-filled that to try and get the jump on Jamie McKnight. If we look at his time, Kai Sloggett did a 1:25.98, so he's a good 1 second slower than Jamie McKnight, who's now in the 119s with the 119.551.
And Jamie actually flashed his light the start-finish line last time. So wondering perhaps that's a signal. Maybe he's working with somebody pit crewing for him or crew chiefing for him, and he's just signalling to them that perhaps this may be a lap where he may be looking at pitting. So keep an eye on him. I'm not sure what that signal was or if it was even intentional, but we may see him pitting this lap.
Yeah, we're at lap 9 at the moment, folks, and been racing now for 14 minutes. Let's see if he's coming in. No, he's not. He might have just been waving at us and saying hello. So, who knows?
It's always possible. Maybe just cruising around out there at the front. Maybe he knew we were talking about him and just decided to give us a quick hello. But closest battle on the track at the moment that I can see is Hannon and Sloggett. Sloggett, of course, has pitted out of second place and really sort of short-filled that car, gave it a splash of fuel, and now he's come out. But the reason he does that is to go out and get some clean air, and now he's used all that clean air and he's right up the back behind Ian Hannon. So it is vital if his strategy is going to come off, because at the moment McKnight is just cruising around on his own. If this is going to work for him, he's got to clear Hannon, and he's got to clear him now. There is no waiting for Sloggett at the moment. So expect him to go on the attack immediately.
Yeah, and he lost another 0.6 of a second on Jamie McKnight. And yeah, absolutely right. He's used that clean air and he was not fast enough to make that. I think he's gambling on, well, he was, on the fact that if he short-filled it, he would gain a couple of seconds and jump McKnight in that case. But as you said, he's got Hannon in front of him. Hannon's not going to pull over and just let him by. He's going to have to work hard and he's going to have to do it fast.
You see, yeah, that's the thing that confuses us a bit, because I understand if Sloggett fell, and Hannon's just got and actually given that position to Sloggett, so that will please him no end. But as I was saying, the strategy that Sloggett went to pull there makes sense if you feel that you're being held up by, if he felt he was being held up by McKnight, it makes sense. But think about it. He's pulled into the pits. He's added fuel. He hasn't changed tyres. So his tyres are the same age as McKnight's, and he's got more fuel on board. So unless he felt he was being held up by McKnight, the strategy of going for the undercut doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I was surprised to see him actually pit, come back out and not be faster, because I would have thought that he would have felt he was being held up. But in any case, he's past Hannon now. He's got that clear air back again. So let's see what he can do. Just Daniel Stevens at the moment, and the random safety car has come out. Now, that is going to make things interesting, because Jamie McKnight has not pitted. Gavin Cox has not pitted. Blair Walton has not pitted. Sharkey has not pitted. Who is the first person who has made a pit stop? That is Kai Sloggett there in 5th place. We were just saying that his strategy may not work out for him. Well, this has put it right in his lap.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, just before that came out, Sam Deventia made his stop. So
very good move.
Yeah, and he's jumped Daniel Stevens, so he could find himself looking pretty good here. Now the question is, with someone like McKnight, he's got a fast car, we know that, but 30% fuel. The question's going to be, what's he going to do? Is he going to come in under yellow and go to the back and then work his way through the field, or is he going to try and get a gap and then come in under green?
I say he will pit. I think he's got to pit. I mean, it gives him a free pit stop. It's a net loss of track position, but at the same time, he comes out right on the tail of the field with fresh tyres and good tank of fuel and ready to go. That's the kind of call that you can make when you have raw pace. You don't have to be too clever. Fernando Alonso famously says, when you have the fastest car, every strategy works. That is the strategy I think he will take, and he almost has to take, as he has to pit now. Because under the safety car, you get basically a free pit stop. And people always say, what do you mean when it says you get a free pit stop? Well, what it means is, when you pit under green, you lose 20, 30, 40 seconds that you then have to make up by driving faster than they drive. If you do so under safety car, then you get to pit and catch back up to the back of the pack, meaning that you have lost only a couple of seconds, whereas before you may have lost 40 or so before. So I think that we must, Jamie McKnight, if he's serious about winning this race, we must see him pit now. But it's going to depend on what his fuel numbers are showing as well.
Yeah, he's coming in. He's doing the old NASCAR walk there, left at the last minute. Now, this isn't too bad for him because the others are following in behind him. So you've got Gary Cox coming in. Kai Sloggett stayed out. Blair Walton also coming in. Carl Sharkey's coming in. Ian Hannon followed him in. Sam DeVentia. What's Sam doing? Sam's back in. So I'm not sure.
Sam may be looking at taking tyres. If he didn't take tyres before, because in the GT3s, you can't take tyres at the same time you take fuel, and the tyres are also very long-lived. So if you pit and you only put in a splash of fuel, then he can come back in now. He can put tyres on it as well, so he can have fresh tyres to the end, and it's not really going to cost him anything in terms of time penalty. So I'd say that's probably what he's done there. Exactly
right. It's up on the jacks there, swapping the tyres out. He's going to be the only one on fresh tyres. The others, even though they're under yellow, they did race off pit road. They did not take tyres. I'm surprised. I would have possibly thrown them on, especially if I was up the back there, like the Audi of Darren Goosey. I'm just having a look. Goosey might have, because he was in there for 23 seconds. Possibly.
I think he may have been repairing some damage, though, Bernie. I don't recall seeing his car go up on the jet.
Yeah, so DeVenti is going to sacrifice third position restart here for new tyres. So we'll see how that plays out. In the past, we haven't noticed a big difference because the GT3s are pretty good on their tyres. They can go for an hour. But check out who's in third, Jamie McKnight.
And there he is, just sat there. So he's only really got clear, and he is we know that. But whether or not he's going to be able to clear, I mean, those two guys in front of him, I can tell you from personal experience racing against them, they are not pushovers. They are hard customers. If you want to get by those guys, they are both going to make you work for it. Kai Sloggett sitting there in the lead at the moment. He's not going to have the range that McKnight has, or the guys that pitted, because obviously he pitted a little bit earlier on, but he is going to have a lighter car than them, and he has got track position, and track position is king. So let's see what he's able to do as he runs through the restart now, and Daniel Stevens right behind him on that similar strategy, and McKnight is going to be attacking immediately. You can count on it.
Yeah, guaranteed. McKnight, he's a hard charger. He races hard. He loves his racing, and he loves to pass people when he can. But so they all do. They're racing drivers, of course. But Kai Sloggett is leading this. 39 minutes of racing to go, folks. Daniel Stevens second. See what McKnight can do now that he's in traffic. I know when he's out leading, he can dictate the race, but now it's a different story. And then the Ferrari sitting in fourth hasn't really had much speed to stick with the Mercedes up front, so we'll see what he does now.
Well, it's a much improved showing from Cox. I mean, if you look back to the Bathurst round when he had that spin at the cutting, I believe it was, as Daniel Stevens ran a little bit wide there. This could actually be a change of position. It looks like McKnight's going to try and stick it down the inside at the corkscrew. And he just runs Daniel Stevens wide there, gets him out onto the gravel, and now he is clear and only has Sloggett to go. Cox taking advantage of that as well and gaining that position. But yeah, as I was saying, Cox had that spin at Bathurst, which cost him a lot of time and caused damage for him and a couple of other guys. So it's a much improved showing from him, sitting there at the moment in fourth place. Third place it's actually become now since Stevens ran off. So let's see where that Ferrari can wind up against this horde of AMGs coming into this race.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Stevens ran off the road again, dropped another position. He wasn't the only one to run off the road there. The BMW did as well. And then down into the hairpin, final hairpin there, Ian Hannon ran wide. So a couple of corners, all three running off the track, losing positions. But at the moment, Kai Sloggett is leading this race by 1.9 seconds. Looking at the times last time through. He gained 9/10 of a second, but of course Jamie had his hands full fighting off Daniel Stevens or battling with him. And the Ferrari now, he's slipping back slowly into the hands of the Mercedes of Carl Sharkey, and there's a bit of a battle going on between these two.
And let's remember as well, we saw at the pit stop, Sam Deventi. Oh, Sloggett's gone. Sloggett has gone off at the end of the crew. He's actually rotated it there. He's off on the right-hand side of the track. He's going to be absolutely spewing because he has just gifted that back to Jamie McKnight. We were set for such an awesome battle there between those two as Jamie tried to fight his way back through. But now Kai's just given himself all that work to do all over again, so he's going to be spewing.
Certainly will. We're having a look at this replay here, folks, to see what happens. And the corkscrew, really tricky part of the circuit, pretty much blind on turning. And we'll have a look at this. He's coming down. Yeah, he did all right on the corkscrew. Oh no, he lost it on exit. What happened? We see it time and time again on these. He got two wheels on the inside of that ripple strip just to cross it, and it was enough to unsettle that car and spin it. And that's the thing with these GT3s. They tend to get unsettled fairly easily.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it, when you got cars with a lot of aero? You know, they are designed in the wind tunnel to go straight through air. They're not designed to go sideways. They're not designed to do... They are designed to go straight through oncoming air. The moment that air starts to hit the car's aerodynamic surfaces at an angle, you lose all the aero because it's not designed to work that way. So it doesn't work that way. And as well, you know, you've got dirty tyres and so on, and you've got the computer systems on these cars. You've got stability control and traction control and ABS and things like that. And once again, they are designed to be optimized for when the car is running straight on a clean track. When it gets one side dirty tyres, one side clean tyres, or you know, you get them up in the air or over a curb or something like that, it confuses the electronics, and the electronics that were there that previously were helping you can actually work against you. And these cars are very, very difficult to catch once they start to get out of shape. And that, I think, is what caught Sloggett there. If he'd been perhaps in a V8 supercar or perhaps MX-5 or something with less or no aero on it, he probably would have been able to recover that and keep going. But a GT3 car, light, aero sensitive, it was just never going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, and they're more stiffly sprung as well, which doesn't help either. But you're dead right, they are designed to get that downforce. But at the moment, Jamie McKnight is running away once again, and the gap 2.8 seconds back to the Ferrari. Good showing by Gavin tonight, and yeah, you're dead right. He's as this series goes on, he's getting stronger, and it's great to see a Ferrari up there mixing it with the Mercedes.
Yeah, it's almost like Formula One, isn't it? Ferrari chasing Mercedes. But let's remember back to the pit stops, and this was just what I was saying before Kai Sloggett's actually had that spin, is that remember at the pit stop, Sam Deventia, only man to take tyres, and he started 9th. A couple of laps later, he is right up to 4th place. Helped obviously by a couple of guys running wide and Sloggett's issue, but he has made moves. He has made overtaking moves on other cars, and that has all come about because of the fact that he, and as we said at the time, can't believe more people didn't do it, he took tyres, and now he is on better tyres than anyone else in this field, including our leader, Jamie McKnight. So and in the same model car. So let's see what he can do.
Yeah, well, exactly right. He's up to 4th now. He's battling it out with Carl. We're riding with him. Look on the dashboard there, folks. One of the new things iRacing's introduced is you can actually see the telemetry now, which is nice on the dash when you're spectating like we are.
Yeah, it's a good, it's a very useful piece of information they've managed to add. With the onboard shots, you can actually see the gears and the revs that the drivers are in, rather than just the blank dash showing I believe they showed reverse gear or something like that they showed before. And it's also a very useful tool for if you're trying to learn a circuit. You can jump on board with somebody, you can look at what they're doing, and one of the most important things when you're learning a circuit, especially like this, is what gears am I using? What, you know, is this a 2nd gear corner, a 3rd gear corner? And that's how drivers in their minds actually categorize each corner is the gear that they're in. So when you're trying to learn, you can jump on board with somebody and you can look at what gears they're doing. It gives the really fast guys nowhere to hide in terms of driving technique anymore, and that can only lead to closer and better racing.
Yeah, and it beats the old technique I used to use when I started in iRacing. I'd jump on board like that. You couldn't see the gears, so I'd wait till we got to a corner where I knew what gear they'd be in, like that hairpin in first, and then I'd spend a lap counting up and down the gear changes. And
we've all done it. We've all done it.
And I thought I was, that's the way we did it before you got all the telemetry, which now, of course, we've got great telemetry you can get from software, plus this latest is really good as well.
It's the interesting thing, isn't it, about sim racing? So many third-party programs. Your VRS classic example monitors your telemetry for you, and you've got you've got Z1 dashboard and iAnalyze and all these little third-party plug-in programs that'll actually give you things and help and assist you, and it's gone far beyond what I'm sure the original creators of iRacing had in mind, as Daventia does run a little bit wide there. But it just shows that even in esports, even in semi-serious esports, people are still looking for every single little tool that they can help themselves to win and help themselves to be competitive, because the guys up the front are using the exact same thing. So all these unintended consequences and so on. As we see one car going to the pits there, I'm not quite sure who that is at the moment.
It's Daniel Stevens coming back in.
Dan Stevens.
Yeah, because he was off strategy. He was one of the first ones to pit, I think. So he's coming in for a second stop now at pretty close to the halfway mark. Yeah, the other big piece of software some people use is the Motec, and that software is pretty much identical to what the real-world racers use.
Yeah, the Motec software is something that I've had a play with myself. Actually, it is the software that the real racers use. There is actually a little tool that you run at the same time which actually assists Motec to convert the iRacing, I guess the signals and the telemetry that iRacing puts out into something it can read. So it is exactly the same software that you use in real life racing cars, the Motec, just with that little tool that actually helps it interpret the iRacing data. So and the fact that you can use it equally well for a sim racing car and a real racing car just shows how close to real life we're getting these days with these sims.
Oh, for sure. And it's transferring all into the hardware. Like if you look at Jamie McKnight here, he's got some pretty slick hardware that he runs with. He's got direct drive steering wheel. And I heard him puffing one day and I said, gee, man, you're out of condition. And he said, well, if you had the steering wheel with the amount of force that I've got, like a real world, you'd be puffing as well. So, you can go from anywhere from a cheap wheel, like a Logitech wheel, that's what I've got here, all the way up to a direct drive and spend, $3,000-$4,000 just on the wheel itself. Yeah,
it's crazy how gotten, isn't it? I run the good old Logitech G27, but that's the thing as well. But it's accessible to absolutely everybody. I mean, if you want to go down to your local shop and pick up a cheap wheel, and a relatively cheap PC actually can run iRacing without too much of a problem, versus going up to things like full motion simulators and so on. It can really cost you as much as you want it to cost you. There's always something else to buy. It's a lot like real racing in that respect.
Yeah, exactly right. And see there, Kai Sloggett, he's off strategy as well. He's come in and taken his pit stop. He did a 13.5 second stop compared to Daniel Stevens' 12.5, but it was enough for him to get out in front of Daniel Stevens. However, look who he's come out behind, Ian Hannon.
Come out behind Ian Hannon again, yeah. So see what actually happens here. Kai does not want to be behind him. That is absolute certain, and perhaps with Hannon running a little bit wide there, they won't be. He's surely not going to go at the corkscrew. He is. He's going to have a go at the corkscrew, and I think Hannon's just decided there, I want no piece of that. I know that Kai's faster. I want to get to the end of this race. It's a long race. I'm not getting involved in that, and he very wisely pulled out of it, I think.
Yeah, well, he jinked. We're actually on the gyro there with Kai there, and he jinked to the left a little bit to try to squeeze Kai. Kai did not even lift. He just kept on going. No, he doesn't.
He absolutely doesn't, Kai Sloggett. I can tell you from personal experience, that guy doesn't know the meaning of lift.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it was so funny. Ian went, I'm going to squeeze you, moved across, and he went, oh, he's not going to lift. He exited stage right and said, you've got the corner.
Speaking of it, we've got another move coming up here at the corkscrew. No, it doesn't look like it's quite going to happen, but there's a great battle going on for second place at the moment. These guys are sitting 11 seconds behind Jamie McKnight at the moment. You've got Sharky, Deventia, Cox just running all together. I believe Deventia's actually got past Cox at some point during this lap and is now turning his attention to the back of Sharky, just applying the blowtorch to it. No, he's not actually. He's diving for the pit lane, so he doesn't want to lose any more time in that battle, and he's dived straight into the pit lane. So yeah, we'll see how this strategy call plays out for him. There's a lot of varying strategies going on tonight. Some people running that backward strategy I referred to earlier on. Some guys trying to be a bit more adaptable. So we'll see how this works out for Deventia. I think he may have been trying to go to the end from here.
Oh yeah, we'll see what he does. But some people might remember back when we were under the random safety car, Deventia came in. You're probably wondering why he's in again. Two reasons. One, he was running off strategy, and the second one was under random safety car. He only threw tyres on it. He did not do any fuel, so he still had to come in and do the fuel stop.
Yeah, perhaps explain, Bernie, to the strategy. So a few guys wouldn't necessarily understand what we mean when we say that.
What's that? The way they fill these cars and change tyres?
Yeah, basically, you know, you almost start with an accepted strategy that most of the field are on.
Yep.
And then, of course, when we say that somebody's running off strategy, that could mean that they're running something different. They're running something a little bit alternate. They're not really running what the leader's running, what the main group of guys are running. What they're trying to do there is try and actually steal a march on the guys which may be a little bit faster or may have better track position than what they're doing. They're trying something else, and that's the great thing about these longer races, like the hour races, 2-3 hour races, is the fact that these strategy calls, even if you don't necessarily have the fastest car, you can make good strategy calls and come away with a very good position. And that's what you're seeing a lot of the guys. Deventia is trying it. Daniel Stevens is trying it. You know, they're doing things a little bit different to the accepted norm with the hope of actually gaining track position at crucial points in the race. So that's what we're actually talking about when we say that somebody's sort of off strategy, as it were.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Like the classic is you can do, as you were talking earlier, reverse strategy. You might calculate, you know, a lot of these guys know how much fuel they're going to need to get to the end. They might realise that at the end they've got to do a splash and dash. So they might say, well, I'm going to run light at the start and I'm going to come in early. I'll do the splash and dash at that point. Then I'll run off strategy, meaning all the other guys are going to pit. I'm still on the track, and when they're on the track, I'm in the pits, so to speak, to gain advantage. The other thing is, you know, the 30% is the maximum fuel that they have to start with. Doesn't mean they have to start with that. And, you know, they say if you're following someone, you need to change your strategy to what they're not doing if you plan to beat them. Otherwise, you're just merely following them and you're not going to get an advantage doing that.
That's right, and that's one of the things that I love personally about motor racing in general, whether it's sim racing, real life, is the fact that it tests absolutely every aspect of you. You know, it's not just driving ability, it's not just being able to put in a quick lap. There's so much that goes into it, even in these longer races. You've got to be thinking, calculating maths in your own head, fuel loads and things like that, fuel loads, tyres, track positions, gaps, intervals, things like that, while you're out there managing the various systems on the car, you know, the ABS, traction control, things like that in the case of these. All the while you're steering it and doing your throttle and gear applications and everything as well. It is a total test of an individual, motor racing, in a way which I don't think any other sport really comes close to. And it's definitely reflected here in the sim racing world.
Oh, definitely. And now in the iRacing, sim racing world, if you want to do it, and I know teams do it, you can have not only a live spotter to help you out, you can have a pit manager now who doesn't only, you know, does all those calculations for you, tweaks the tyre settings if you tell them you need that done. They can work out how much fuel you're going to need, and they can adjust that and control your pit stop. So you have a true team environment now in the iRacing service, and I know some people, especially in the V8s, that's how they do it.
And it's such an advantage. I'm just watching Daniel Stevens go at Hannon, just recovering from that pit stop he had earlier on. I think Tannen in the back as he comes into the corkscrew, but he'll recover that and go back after them. But it's such a help. It's more of a help than you can possibly imagine. Having somebody there, a calm brain that's not being overloaded with all the various pieces of information about what's going on with the car at that particular time. They can look at numbers, they can do the calculations, they can do, as I think we see Sloggett going into the pits again. Yes, we do. He's actually making another stop and just weaving the car from side to side a little bit there too. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there as he rolls into the pits, but yeah, as we were saying, having people on your side doing those sums for you and helping you out is such a massive, massive advantage over somebody who's doing it all themselves.
Oh, definitely right. And you see it all the time when we used to cover the big ones. Here comes Jamie McKnight also taking his pit stop now. So that's interesting. Kai's actually come in. Jamie's followed him. So I wonder if Jamie's concerned that he needs to cover off Kai, so he might still be thinking about it, although he did have a big lead.
Yeah, he did have a big lead, and you can see here that as he actually overtakes him there in the pit lane, he's actually putting him a lap. So I'm not really sure that it was particularly looking at covering him off. I'm fairly sure that I can see the very similar liveries on both of those cars, WPC on both cars. I'm not sure if they're actually both teammates, but they are certainly running a very similar strategy. But I don't think that McKnight's got much to worry about from Sloggett since that spin really kind of put him down and out of contention.
There he goes, flashing the lights again as he knocks off all the bunting back onto the track, and the little elves will come out and clean that up shortly. But yeah, Jamie McKnight, he drives for Performance Sim Racing, and right. As far as I know with Kai Sloggett, he's with Middle Finger Racing, and basically the connection between those two, Middle Finger Racing is like they've got an affiliation with Performance Sim Sports, or whatever they call themselves, and they'll often, when they get a new signing, they might put them in Middle Finger Racing, develop them up, and then if they show the skill level, they may move them up into Performance Sim Sports. Now, they are two different teams, but they are run in affiliation with each other.
Okay, so they do have some sort of collaboration there. I'm not very similar to both of those cars, and Middle Finger Racing, of course, very well known throughout certainly the Jan's car series, which I'm involved with, and a number of different series across across the iRacing landscape, I suppose, as we see our new leader Gavin Cox just taking service there in the pit lane. But those guys have got quite a number of very, very capable drivers on their hands, and I'm not surprised that they've got the affiliation there. It's probably a very good way of actually doing things, and it's certainly working out for them.
Yeah, well, a lot of teams do it because the advantage is they can share the data, and they can help. Like if you've got faster drivers in the other team, they can coach the other drivers and get them up to speed. They can develop, they can run different strategies and compare how it worked in that race and further develop it that way. And you can accelerate your sim racing career and your results very quickly by doing it that way, instead of trying to go out alone and learn all this stuff.
Yeah, going alone can definitely be like banging. Yeah, the one thing that those bigger teams have is that, they operate huge databases setups as well, which means that when they arrive to a circuit, they're not starting on the iRacing baseline, they're not starting from scratch. They are coming there with prior knowledge, and they're coming there with what worked for them last time they were racing at that circuit. They set all their cars up that way, and then they just tweak them as they need to account for the weather conditions and various bits and pieces that may have changed since last time they were there. But in the main, they're well set up, and they steal a march on everybody else by having that data and that background, and really, they're 5 steps ahead before the meeting even starts. So, yeah, definitely a very smart way to do it if you've got the ability to do it that way.
Oh, definitely. And I tell you what, Kai Sloggett, he's in trouble. That car has not left the pits. And I would say he was weaving, possibly because he had engine trouble. I don't know, but we can count him as retired, I'd say.
Oh, that's a shame for him. Normally you actually can weave the car.
You're just dropping in and out a little bit, Edward.
Try and get a bit of pickup that way, but there's no reason that they wouldn't have just put fuel in the car immediately upon him pulling into that pit stall. So I really don't know what's happened to Kai there. Perhaps he'll let us know later on. But yeah, shame for him. That's all you can say.
Oh yeah, it is. And I'm just answering one of the questions George had in the chat channel. He was saying, so those two teams are sort of like a feeder program. I'd say they're more like Toro Rosso are to the Red Bull team. That's
exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely sort of the Toro Rosso Red Bull scenario, or perhaps even what we've seen now, Alfa Romeo Sauber, the things. You know, there's a lot of teams even within Formula One looking at that sort of A team, B team setup that's worked so well for Red Bull.
Yeah, exactly right. And I know iRacing, as we get more serious, that's happening. Teams are forming partnerships, and they're going and campaigning that way, and it's great to see. I don't know what it's like in the NASCAR side of things. I'm assuming, I know in the world NASCAR they do have their own engineers and their own managers and all that working with them, but that's at the pro level of our esport.
Yeah, it really depends. I think there are a number of setups. Finger racing are very prevalent in the ANS cast, but they, of course, performance sim sports aren't there. So they are the top level of their particular organisation in there. And then you've got guys like Jason Martin who run alone and just manage to smoke everyone anyway. And then, of course, you've got guys like Josh Mickelmore who actually drives for a pro level team in the NASCAR iRacing series, and he's obviously got fantastic setups and backup there. Riley Curtis Designs Motorsports that I'm part of, we don't have an affiliation with anybody else. We sort of run as our own. So, but I imagine as that series gets bigger, and you may find some teams adopting a style like that. I'm really not sure. Of course, the road racing series in Australia is a much broader, more involved. There are a lot more participants than perhaps on the more Americanized oval side of it. So it's no surprise that I guess the arrangements and the professionalism and the organisation that goes into things like the GT3 and the V8 supercars is fairly further down the road than what we would have on the oval side.
Yeah, it'll hopefully, as the oval side in Australia catches on with the ANSCAR series, which it is, it's doing really well. We'll see changes there. I know a few guys like Josh Mickelmore. I think he's racing in the series, the official series. I know Sam Deventia did yesterday. He got 5th, I think it was, in his race. So it's great to see the Aussies taking it to the internationals where they can. At the moment, though, speaking of Sam Deventia, he's sitting in second now, and he's 12.1 seconds behind the lead. So his strategy's paid off with those fresh tyres.
Yeah, and I mean, he was 6th on the grid. And that's, we're looking at a field of 9, so he was not high up the field. However, this is what we were saying earlier on. It's not all about that raw pace. It's about strategically how you make those calls. And he has played an absolutely strategic masterclass so far in this race. The race is now 47 minutes old, so it's not got long to go. I think all the pit stops are probably done. And he has strategized himself up there into second place. So for me, taking out of it the pace superiority of Jamie McKnight, Sam Deventia, driver of the night for me so far. Obviously, if he bins it, that's going to be different, but he looks very comfortable out there at the moment, and I think he's done an absolutely fantastic job.
Yeah, that's right. And we'll see how he goes with if he does have to bring it back in, but he's looking good so far. One of the viewers was saying your mic was cutting in and out slightly throughout the broadcast. I don't know if it's sensitivity or internet connection. It's just thought we'd let you know. So.
Oh, yeah, no problems. I hope it's not too distracting for everyone listening, but it's, probably the combination of 15 PC and iRacing and Discord at the same time, I think. So, I'll just have to do my best.
Yeah, that's right, and it's it's interesting in Australia, folks. For people watching from overseas, the internet in Australia, well, you know what a patchwork quilt looks like. Well, internet in Australia is not quite as pretty as that. It's very similar, and it's sort of a bit of a mess, one could say. So people have different speeds depending where they are, and what technology they can plug into. But speaking of Sam Deventia, we said a minute ago, could he get to the end? He's answered that and said no. He's back in the pits taking his final stop.
No, I'm surprised about that because he didn't pit too long ago. I'm not sure whether he feel and gain a couple of positions that way, but I'm surprised that with 10 minutes to go, he needed to jump back into the pits. But then again, think back to the beginning of this race. Think back to the guys who were pitting after 10 minutes. So perhaps they were running the reverse strategy, and he's run the traditional strategy. He's filled it up, run it out of fuel, filled it up, run it out of fuel, and now he just needs that splash to get to the end. So perhaps it wasn't as strategically brilliant as it first looked, but either way, he's still running solidly.
Yeah, we'll see when the others come in. If we look at the amount of pit stops people have taken, Jamie McKnight, he's taken 2. We said they'll need 2 to get home. So he's done his 2. He should, touch wood, get home from here. Gavin Cox, he in the Ferrari, he's done his 2. Daniel Stevens, number 66, sitting in 3rd for... I think he's with Middle Finger Racing.
He's pitting now. He's into the lane.
Yeah, he's doing a 3rd stop here. Blair Walton, he's done a 3rd stop, so he will definitely get to the end. Deventia, now this is the question. He's done 5 stops, so he's done the most out of all of them, which surprised me that he had to come in again. Carl Sharkey, he's done 2, so he'll probably have to stop again. Ian Hannon, 4 stops. Goosey in the Audi, 2 stops. And Porkai Sloggett, well, he's doing the stop of a lifetime because that car's not going anywhere.
Yeah, you can measure this pit stop on a calendar if he comes out, but I think it's much more likely to be a retirement. But, shout out to Gavin Cox there as well in the Ferrari, running in a solid 2nd place. Your best of the rest behind the dominant McKnight. He's driven solid. He's done well, I think.
Oh, yeah, and he's in the only lonely Ferrari. I call them all lonely when there's only one car out there of that make. But, he's flying the Italian flag there, and I'm sure, is it the Tifosi or whatever the hell they call themselves, would be cheering.
Tifosi.
Yeah, they'd be cheering. All the flags would be waving.
Yeah, absolutely. Just having a look at Blair Walton there as well. He's popped up in 3rd place, so I'm not sure if he's going to need us. Coming towards the last 10 minutes now of this race. He's sort of hovered around about that sort of, 6th, 7th sort of place in this race, and now all of a sudden he's 3rd. So either he's really pulled a fast one, and of course, as we say that, there he goes straight into the pits. So I imagine he will probably pop out around about 6th place when this all shakes out.
Yeah, and this is looking good for Deventia because he will move up now, get past the BMW, straight up to 3rd. Question is now, Gavin Cox in the Ferrari. He may have to come in. What about Jamie McKnight? We've got 9 minutes to go, and we just don't know how much fuel these guys have got in them. I really wish that when you jump in on board, you could actually see how much fuel they've got, but I guess that takes away from the drama of wondering if they can get home or not.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It'd give the game away a little bit, wouldn't it? Especially, not only to the competition, but to us as well. Having a look at McKnight, he's going past entrance yet again. I'm not really sure. We haven't really been watching him so much because there's been action going on behind, and he's sort of been serenely stroking around on his own. But I guess we'll need to see whether he makes another stop. He's got a 23-second lead, so he could almost get away with doing one for fun. But yeah, let's see, because I don't recall us seeing him in the pits at all, apart from during that safety car, but we could have missed it.
Yeah, the other thing he's doing, folks, is he's managing that gap. And what I mean by that is when you get a lead this big, you start driving to a number. And what that number normally is your fuel number and your time. And they what they do is they look at how much fuel they're burning, how much gap they've got, and then they can manage that gap and that fuel number to get that car home. And looking at his times, he's definitely into the fuel saving mode, I'd say. Maybe not. he's lapping 1:21.355, saying that he's the fastest car on track, but his fastest time tonight was a 1:19.551.
Yeah, the joys of having pace. You can pretty much do, you can manage things or go flat, build a gap for yourself. But these cars also, it's important to remember, have a fuel-saving mode. It's not like in different type of cars that don't have so much electronics where you may need to just lift and coast or do various driving techniques to try and save fuel. But these actually have engine modes that you can flick a switch and it's delivering less fuel into the engine. The trade-off with that is it makes less power. In order to stop losing time and minimise that time loss, you do have to drive, very precisely, drive very hard and push like you're on a qualifying lap. But of course, you are going slower in that fuel-saving mode. So perhaps he's using a bit of a lower engine mode now. Perhaps they all are. But he's 23 seconds to the good, so he hasn't got a care in the world at the moment.
Exactly right. It's his race to lose, as we say. And you can see rain on the horizon out there, folks. Don't worry. Guaranteed it's not going to rain here. It looks gloomy, but we're not going to get any rain. Well, not yet anyway. Maybe in a few more releases. That would be nice. But at the moment, not a care in the world for him. Sam Deventia, 10 seconds down from Gavin Cox now. He's back in the 120s, 129.28. And Jamie McKnight did a 126.88. So, tell you what, Deventia has closed in a good 1.2 seconds on Gavin this last lap. So that tells me the Ferrari may be in fuel problems here.
Yeah, so I mean, to be honest, the only way he's going to catch is if that. I mean, the gap is quite significant at the moment. So he can afford to fuel save. The difference is, does he have enough fuel to save? Has he got enough to get to the end, even when he's got everything saving? I was just having a quick look at Blair Walton and Dan Stevens. They're actually quite close on the circuit there. Dan just starting to pull a little bit of a gap on him now as well. So I think that position, barring pit stops or any kind of dramas, is probably settled as well. Blair running as the final car on the lead lap at the moment, with Hannon and Goosey having been lapped by the all-dominant McKnight.
And we'll bring up the battle pack graphic here, folks. So the gap from Gavin Cox back to Sam Deventia, 15.064. We'll wait for Deventia to come across and we'll see that number change. There it goes, 14.848. So it's coming down, but with 5 minutes to go, they're probably only going to get another three, possibly. No, I think it's going to be 3 laps.
Yeah, not a lot of time left in this one now. Lee. It's definitely. Yeah. But it's we're running along now, and we're not really sure. As we mentioned before, there's still that fuel down over certain guys. So I'll be interested to see, as we mentioned, if Jamie can run it all the way to the flag. Perhaps not. It looks as though there's a lot of smoke there in the pit lane as well. I'm not sure if you can see who that might be. That's Kai Sloggett. Well, it's just blown up all on its own, just sitting there.
Just sitting there. He's blowing the motor. So
just attending his own barbecue there in the pit lane.
I'd say what he's done is he's got so fed up with it, he's just got a match and lit it and walked away. But Kai Sloggett.
Yeah, that's one of the things they used to say about Jack Brabham. When he had to nurse a sick car home, but when he got angry, he could also leave that car devoid of any working mechanical component at all, just ruin the thing out of sheer frustration by the end of the race. And that could have been what Kai's done there. He's just decided to blow the thing up and maybe just chuck a little bit of a haze across the circuit, give the drivers that remain out there something else to deal with.
Well, I think I know what the problem is. He loves his NASCAR. NASCAR, you generally get fireworks. Road racing, you generally don't. So I think he's just, creating his own fireworks to celebrate Jamie McKnight's potential win here.
After racing as hard as he did to try and steal that victory away, I don't think he's celebrating Jamie McKnight at the moment. But you can just see it there as I'm watching McKnight just cruise past the pit lane, that thing bubbling up in the pit lane quite nicely. I'm not sure if he's going to leave that out or taking it back to the garage, but it's certainly producing its fair share of, well, maybe just wanted attention. Nobody has spoken about it for a while being in the pits, so maybe just giving us something to discuss.
Yeah, we'll jump on board with him. No, the motor's not running. He's just sitting there watching the smoke.
Yeah, I think the technical term for that is she's cactus.
She's cactus, all right. And he's just sitting there going, burn, baby, burn. But we've got 3 minutes 20 left of this, folks. The question is, will this Ferrari make it home? I'm guessing with 3 minutes to go it should. Looking at that live gap now, 14.05 seconds for Sam DeVentia. But Sam will be happy with this. He's coming home. If he gets to the end the way he's going, he'll get on the podium, and not a bad effort.
Yeah, he's done very well. Like we say, qualified 6th. He's brought it up to 3rd. I imagine Cox is pretty okay, just given the fact that he's not exactly out of position at the moment. He was 3rd, 4th, from the start of the race. Sloggett's dropped out, and he's around about sort of where you'd expect him to be. So his position doesn't surprise me. Sam DeVentia, I think you said earlier on that he did like 5 stops or something like that, and to be sitting up there in 3rd place is very impressive indeed. Got Dan Stevens there running along in 4th. We haven't seen too much of him tonight. He's sort of hung around the rear for quite a while, but he's managed to pull himself back up there into 4th after running a full 500 laps at Bristol today. So, yeah, done very well. And, of course, the lone BMW is sitting there in 5th place.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to say Dan Stevens is going to, when he goes to sleep tonight, all he's going to see is track ahead of him, because he's done a lot of
he's
miles.
Done a lot. Yeah, definitely. I don't know how he's doing it. I'm still exhausted. So I don't know. Racing GT3 is just a glutton for punishment, I think. But yeah, he'll probably say, "Oh, look, I would have won it if not for the fatigue." But yeah, in any case, he's sitting there in 4th place and doing very well.
Yeah, and we just, Jamie McKnight just answered that. He came into the pits, splashed in 4.9 seconds worth of fuel with 1.5 minutes to go. He's come out just ahead of Gavin Cox, probably by about 5-6 car lengths, and now he's good to go. But if Cox is in trouble.
Cox is gone.
He's held on to it, and he's gathered that thing up. But what it tells me is if Jamie had to come in for fuel, surely Gavin must be on vapours at the moment.
Yeah, well, perhaps Jamie was trying to sort of engineer it, and when he's had to continue on with the pace that he had and not been able to cross the line under checkered flag, he realised he had to do another lap. Then obviously he's looked to come into the pit lane, but Gavin continuing on. It doesn't look as though he is in any fuel difficulty at all, unless he runs out of fuel on this one.
He's fuel saving though. You can hear it. If you're wondering what we mean, folks, have a listen. He'll lift slightly earlier, and there he's going to prove me wrong. Going down the hill, he was actually lifting and using that to coast the car down through that part of the circuit.
Yeah, he's rolling onto the...
Yeah, he's definitely fuel saving.
Yeah, that is not qualifying pace, is it, that he's running it there? So he's just got to be praying that this thing doesn't cough. I think he was probably not budgeting on having this last lap either. He was probably calculating on it being, when you run into these timed races, you calculate on them finishing when they're due to finish. It's a 1 hour race, you're calculating it to finish on an hour, but there's always the chance that the leader's going to cross the line with 2 seconds to go, and then of course you get another lap, and it's a whole other lap that you've got to survive. So let's see if he can do it.
Yeah, well, he's up the top of the mountain now, or the hill, whatever you call it. He could virtually coast his way down here. Jamie McKnight, last lap now. He's coming down to take the checkered flag. Ian Hannon moved over and led him through, so I'd say he was playing the strategy game of I'm out of fuel. So Jamie McKnight takes the win. Gavin Cox, he's coming to the line.
He's going to make it. He's done it. Yeah,
I was listening. It's revving. He might stop on the other side, but that doesn't matter. Sam DeVentia, though, good drive by him. The gap at the end, as he comes across the line now, he actually stopped the chase. It was 18.765, but he had nothing to gain by pushing it. Home in 4th is Daniel Stevens, and he had an awesome drive too, considering he's driven halfway to Queensland today already. And then Blair Walton coming home in 5th position in the BMW.
Yeah, little Beamer coming home. Good job. Fantastic to see the just personal level, seeing the BMW there. So very happy to see him cross the line there.
Yeah, we can see now Carl Sharkey, he's coming across 4-6 position, and then Ian Hannon, I've got he's left the server. He was classified 7th, so that's the UK and Ireland guys 6th and 7th. Darren Goosey in the Audi, he came home in 8th. Kai Sloggett, the car stopped smoking, but he's classified 9th, and congratulations, Edward, you're classified in 11th.
Oh, absolutely fantastic. It's better than I usually do when I... So, yeah, I'll take nothing talk pulled off at 11th, so I'll have that.
Now, we've got a Ferrari. I wonder if that's a Ferrari guy. I thought it was Ferrari Lari for a minute. Don't know who Ferrari is in the green room. With a name like that, I'm not sure if I want to bring him up and find out.
It's always a little bit of a risk. You never quite know what you're going to get, but yeah, take a risk. Let's see what happens. Yeah, okay, let's bring up Ferrari and find out who he is. There's Dan, maybe Dan. We'll bring up Ferrari. Good evening. Wondering who we're speaking to. All I can see is Ferrari.
Yeah, hi, it's Gavin Cox, mate.
Oh, Gavin, how you going? Yeah, we were rolling the dice there to wonder who it was, but well done, mate. Second place in the Ferrari there. Good effort. Question we have is how much fuel did you have left in that thing?
I had about 0.1 of a litre left, I think.
Wow. Yeah, we thought you must have been because we were listening to you rolling off the throttle there and fuel saving and the time went down. But excellent effort. I'm really happy to see a Ferrari up there taking it to the Mercedes. So congratulations.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. Yeah, it's been a fair slog this season, but had a really good car here for this race, and thought fuel might come into it. I just probably didn't quite push hard enough in the middle there, and it might have been real close at the end.
Yeah, well, we saw Jamie McKnight come out. He threw 4 seconds of fuel in it. He come out probably about 6 car lengths ahead of you. And, as far as stops go, you did the least amount. It says 2 here, so that's pretty good. But as far as the racing goes, how much of the racing do you think strategy played in it tonight?
A heck of a lot, I think, because I knew I probably didn't have the pace to stay with Jamie. Tyre wear was starting to, had a fairly aggressive setup, and tyre wear was starting to take its toll a bit as well. So I thought the Mercedes would have to probably lap earlier than me, and I could just save it, a little bit of fuel, it might have been all I needed.
Yeah, and Sam was he was hunting you down. It got as low as 11, and then he gave up on that chase, and you got that second. So awesome drive, and I'm going to hand you over to Edward now, and see if he's got any more questions for you.
Hi, Gavin. Fantastic job there on second place. I just really wanted to have a question with you, because one of the things that we were saying that everybody does when they go into an hour-long race is they sort of strategise for it to last an hour. But of course, you got that extra lap there. It looked like McKnight sort of crossed the line with not very long to go, so you got that extra lap, which meant that fuel saving you were doing became, that fuel situation for you became even more dire. Were you expecting, had you budgeted for that final lap if it came to pass, which in the end it did?
Yeah, I'd been saving a little bit. I had about a litre up my sleeve, running on fuel 5, so I was prepared to go back to fuel 1 if it was close and really try and push to the end.
Yeah, because we could see, and it was such a strategic battle. We never really knew anything was going to shake out until such time as the end really. The race ended, and we were listening to you, and we were listening to your engine and everything else, and the way you were driving into the corners, and how ginger you were having to be on the throttle, and just everything like that. So I thought it was supremely well judged, and you completely deserve that second place. So well done.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. It's nice to be up on the podium.
Yeah, definitely. And do you have any sponsors or people you want to give a shout out to?
My main one's just probably Hybrid Race Simulations, HRS. Cheers to them for letting me put the sponsorship on the car.
Fantastic. Well, you were flying the flag there. We saw the Defosi up the top of the mountain. You probably didn't see them, but we imagined them all with the flags flying. So, yeah, congratulations.
Fantastic. Thank you.
He's got to hang around Vettel more and learn to go grazie, grazie, whatever the hell they say.
Grazie, forza Ferrari.
So we'll bring Dan up very shortly, but a bit of an update here. Riley Deventia said Sam says to say good day. He's really stoked with P3 and he's really happy for it. And he also wanted to say great racing to the rest of the guys out there. So no problem, Sam. It was good to see you up there on the podium. Blair Walton also had some problems in his BMW. He's telling us that he didn't need to okay, he didn't need
to take the last stop, I think. Yeah, it was a bit unnecessary. So, calculations obviously a little bit off. BMW cockpit, but at the same time, that's one of those things that that we speak about, where it's great if you can have a teammate or a crew chief or something like that doing those sums for you. Just helps you minimise those errors.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing he said was after that first pit stop, his pit limiter got stuck on. So that's a bit of a drama there for Blair, and it's one of those bugs, isn't it? We see it every now and again where your pit limiter can get stuck on, and it can sort of cause a bit of chaos for you.
Yeah, it's never personally happened to me, but I certainly don't envy anyone that it does happen to. I mean, there could be nothing more frustrating than something like that.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I saw it at Le Mans. One of those long races that we covered, one of the cars came out, their pit limiter stuck on. They had to do the whole lap of Le Mans with the pit limiter stuck on. It was a very slow lap, I'll tell you.
Oh, that'd be absolutely torture.
It would, wouldn't it? Anyway, let's bring Dan Stevens up. Speaking of torture, no, he's a nice guy. Trust me, he's just been tortured with the amount of laps he's done or miles today. I might let you start, Edward, and let's see if he's snoring or not.
Dan Stevens, Iron Man. How on earth did you manage to pull off a 5-hour race at Bristol and then run a further hour here at one of the most demanding tracks that you can find? Where did you get the energy?
To be honest, mate, I was actually thinking that myself when I jumped in the seat, and I thought, hey, I've got to turn right here, and it took me a good 10 laps to get used to it, eh?
Well, I'm actually glad to hear you say that, because one of the things that I was saying at the start of the broadcast is, I've got a lot of admiration for the guys that are able to run in such diverse vehicles, like a stock car and a GT3 and something else. And not only that, being able to swap directly from one, jump out of that, park that up, jump into another one, completely different car, completely different circuit, and still be competitive. Maybe you can talk the guys who are watching through. I'm sure everybody wants to know, how do you actually handle that? How do you handle the transition when you have to jump out of something so different into something completely opposite?
You just got to close that book, mate. At the end of that oval race, I just closed that book. I went and got myself a drink, had a bit of a refresh, jumped back in the seat, and I just started fresh right from the beginning. I knew it was going to be hard right from the start, so I didn't try and go hard out first off in my practice laps. I just went out and just cruised around and just got used to it once again, got my mind in the right location and stuff like that, like I'm in a different car, and different speeds, different handling, and then I just gradually worked on it. And as you saw, I was actually struggling through qualifying, and I had a bit of a break, went straight back into it, and I pulled out the fourth.
So it's more of a mental sort of reset rather than any sort of, I guess, physical methodology or something that you use to make that transition.
Yeah, mate, totally mental. But I tell you what, I've got an OSW wheel, and my arms are like spaghetti at the moment after that 500 lap race.
Yeah, that's why you run a little cheap G27 like I do, mate. It doesn't hurt you at all. But I guess one of the things, looking at this race, it was very strategic. Even just being an hour in duration, we weren't really sure where anyone was going to finish right up until the last because of the different strategies that were playing out. How did it play out from your view, and how did you decide on the strategy that you were going to use for this race?
Well, I actually thought, I said to myself, it's been this track, and and these guys, you know, being all the dirt that stuff gets onto the track, it's going to be quite slippery. So I thought, oh yeah, it might be a manual, like a caution actually come out early, like not our random one. So I thought I'll pit me and Kai early-ish, like in the first, say, below 10 laps, just in case that caution does come out. And it didn't. It came out a little bit later, but that strategy kind of worked if I kept it on track. That's the only thing.
Yeah, we did see a few mistakes tonight, not least of which you mentioned Kai Sloggett earlier on. So you guys were working together on the strategy, is that correct? Yeah,
we were. The only reason why he pulled out of the race is because he lost force feedback.
We did wonder what happened to him because, of course, at the start he was running quite well up behind Jamie McKnight, and then he jumped into the pits, and we were saying that he was probably going to be going for an undercut sort of scenario, but then it didn't quite play out that way, and we were quite mystified as to what actually happened to him. So thanks for clearing that up. But I guess from your perspective, you've obviously chosen the strategy that you wanted to run. Sort of adapting on the fly, if you like, to that random safety car, because you don't really know when it's going to happen. But I guess, looking at the strategies that everybody else ran, I mean, did you feel that the way you ran the race was as optimized as it could possibly be from a strategy perspective, or do you think that you were out-strategized by some others?
No, my strategy would have actually worked because I knew that everybody was going to come in under that safety car. It was guaranteed that everybody was going to come in. So that's why me and Kai stayed out. And as you saw, it put us in first and second. Only thing was, we were off strategy to everybody else. At the end of the race, I'm not too sure how it would have worked out, but it would have been worked out a lot better if I stayed on track. When I had someone beside me through the corkscrew and I went wide, I had to slow down. And next corner, I went off again, so I lost 3 or 4 spots. I reckon if I could have held the guys behind me and Kai could have held the guys behind us for a good stint or so, it would have worked out a lot better.
Yeah, well, either way, mate, 4th place at the end of the day, so nothing to be sneezed at. Good haul of points, good result. And given the shift that you've put in today, mate, I think, I don't know what Middle Finger Racing is paying you, but I think you deserve a raise because that was one hell of a shift.
Hey, mate, no, we do it for love here, a good bunch of guys.
All right, excellent. I mean, do you have anybody else that you'd like to thank, other than, of course, your team, Middle Finger Racing, who we actually have seen quite a lot of today. Actually, we discussed them at length during the broadcast, and the way that you guys are set up with a couple of the other teams in there. But I mean, do you have anybody else you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, mate. Big ups go to West End Mazda. Of course, you guys at RRTV, AutoKings.com, RacingLeagues.com, and Wayne Pengelly's WP Concreting.
Yeah, fantastic.
Sorry, Ben.
Nice.
You can finish up the interview. I'm just going to sit here and sleep for a bit.
Okay, well, I don't think I'll be sleeping after that one. It was an absolutely fantastic race. But, just congratulations to you, Dan. Obviously, you're involved with the running of this series as well. So I think on the definitely on the driving front and on the running of the series front, just fantastic job and congratulations.
Cheers, buddy. And thanks to you, Edward, as well, mate.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week.
Where are we going to?
The final is at Phillip Island, mate. So it looks like it's going to be a good-sized grid. I think we're going to have about 24 to 30 cars by the looks of it.
Fantastic. I'm definitely looking forward to that, and it's a good way to send off the series, that's for sure.
Yeah, mate, for sure, definitely.
No worries. We'll see you next week, mate.
Okay, guys. Catch you later.
Yeah, fantastic series, that's for sure. While you were doing that interview, Blair Walton was saying he lost 20 seconds with the pit limiter. Turned out it wasn't a bug, it was the button, the pit limiter button, and he ended up having to, he said, push it really hard to fix it.
Oh, it's so frustrating, isn't it? But you see that kind of thing all the time in real-life motorsport as well. These silly little, software issues or mechanical issues or things like that can sneak in and sort of ruin it. I mean, he still didn't have a bad finish at the end of the day, Walton. So, without that 20-second issue, what could he have achieved? So, look, one of those things. He'll come back next week and give it another crack. So, hopefully he'll just get that button sorted out, or maybe just assign another button to the pit limiter. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he said he's going to replace it, so before the next race. And these are the things, folks, that happen in sim racing. Just like real world racing, you get these gremlins, you get the equipment failure, and all sorts of things can creep in. But that's a famous old 20-cent part. Could have cost him a race, but fortunately it didn't. Knowing a BMW, it probably would have cost a 50-cent part. But just said that for you, Edward.
Yeah, well, the thing is, on a BMW, mate, there aren't any 50-cent parts. They're all, they're all 50 plus.
Yes, I can imagine. But looking later tonight, folks, we have the SRA coming along probably in the next hour, maybe hour and a half, and we'll be bringing that action to you on RRTV as well, and hopefully you can stick around for that. After that race, so that will be the end for this weekend's marathon day of broadcasting. However, if you like open wheeler racing, Alex McCullough and I call them his crew. They're the other broadcasters of RRTV. They'll be bringing you the Skip Barber Monday Night Lights, and it's a fantastic series, really close racing. Those things are designed to race wheel to wheel, and they often do. Often those guys are the top split for the round in the world, and they're often, if they're not the top split, they're generally in the top three. So we get people from all over the world coming down to race in that race, 9:15 p.m. Monday night. But Edward, thanks, mate, for coming in and saving the day and calling this with me. It's far more fun having you in here than just myself.
Oh, I absolutely loved it. Loved it. I love it every time I come up and call a race with you. So, hopefully, I know it's a couple of guys reporting I was having a bit of a mic issue there for a while, so I'm hoping it wasn't too distracting and, didn't consider it too much of a favour. You couldn't hear what I was saying because most of it's rubbish. But, I had a great time, as always. And, it always helps when you've got a fantastic race to watch with some great cars and drivers. And, it's just a good series. And, enjoyed it. So thanks very much.
Yeah, well, it didn't matter too much when you dropped in and out because I just substituted words. So one point you were saying something along the lines of it's really important to, and then I put in rabbits are fun. So it seemed to work fine.
Okay. Well, hopefully it's come across well.
Yeah, I noticed that pause. You're thinking, what the hell's he talking about? But anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in tonight, and hope you enjoyed tonight's race. It was a very fun, strategic race, and where there was a lack of numbers in the field, there was definitely not a lack of strategy. So hopefully you enjoyed that. And if you didn't see today's race, we're not going to tell you who won. Go and check it out. It's a marathon, full-length race at Bristol, 500 laps, wasn't it? Was it 500 laps? 300 laps? What was it? 500
laps. 500. Yes, it was 500 laps.
Yeah, so, yes, a long one, let's put it that way. But anyway, folks, on behalf of Edward Foster, I'm Bernie Weemers. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you'll come back a bit later on tonight if you want to see how the Sim Racers Asia GT3 boys do it. We have them from through Asia and Oceanic, that's Australia, New Zealand clubs also partake in that. But until then, folks, have a great weekend. If we don't see you later on tonight, play fun tomorrow, Sunday, and we'll catch you soon. Good night.